we were going to move into and talk about some of our most underrated MCU films. Now, I'm hoping this is kind of a sort of uplifting, jovial conversation. Not sure where you guys are going with this, but I had one I wanted to start with, and I'm just going to say this goes out to a couple of people on Sakaar specifically, most notably Mr. Akbar and Mr. Haunted Knight. If you guys are listening, I spent the last 2 days watching Thor: The Dark World. And I gotta tell you, I love this movie. I don't know. I don't know what you people. I don't know what everybody's on. Like, okay, so I got a couple thoughts about it. One, I love this movie because it starts out with a fantastic sci-fi vibe. I just a deep sci-fi sort of element of the being on this planet and dealing with whatever the Aether is, which we didn't know at the time. One of the things I loved about this movie is finding out what the Aether actually was. But this movie moves through a lot of different levels. It's got some fantastic sci-fi action with the siege of Asgard. I love that whole sequence. It's really intense. The movie builds. It starts off with a great scene of Heimdall. It's his best scene in the MCU to me. Sitting there on the bridge, sensing something is going on as that invisible ship sort of comes into Asgard, and then he runs out, jumps on the thing, takes it down, but then you realize there's more coming, and you see his like hopelessness kind of set in. But the siege was great, the intensity, the buildup of seeing Curse on the inside taking down their defenses. The breakout of the prison, I absolutely love that sequence, and everything that revolves around Loki in there. I could go on about this movie forever. Loki sitting there with that moment where he has that intense moment of Curse where they stare each other down. Loki doesn't back down, then he gives him advice. The scene before that where he's talking to his mom, and he has he has that sort of emotional bonding with her where he kind of separates himself from his family completely. He tells his mother that no, she's not his real mother, and he kind of breaks that and then realizes she didn't even come to the room with him as he touches her and she disappears. That whole thing, the escape sequence after that, the funeral scene for Frigga just before that, actually. Frigga's sacrifice in defending Jane was incredibly heroic. It was one of the most heroic things in the entire series, and for me. The escape sequence that I just mentioned where Loki knows the secret ways out of Asgard and they're flying around in that ship and jumping down, and Loki doesn't know exactly what Thor's plan is, but he pushes him out. He pushes Loki out of the ship, and they finally escape on the other boat. I don't know. That whole thing to me is fantastic. Loki's death, I know was kind of like a secret death, but and he comes back. The ending where Loki's just on the throne. I love that whole thing, man. I love this movie start to finish. I don't know where you guys are at on it, but I think it's fantastic. You can comment on that, or we can just kind of move along. Biz, what was yours?
Underrated movies. I'd have to go with Thor 1, actually.
Okay.
The first Thor movie. Because like it's not mentioned in the same vein as like some other popular movies, for example, like Infinity War, Endgame, like Avengers, like one. I think it's a little bit lower tier as well, like. But you know what I mean? It's not as popular as the other ones, like Civil War. Like, yeah, I thought it had like a pretty strong and compelling story. Like you see Thor kind of wet behind the ears, like he's trying to do the right thing, but he's a bit like arrogant and a bit hard-headed about it. And then like he gets sent to Earth to like sort out his issues because his father banishes him and apparently he's not worthy anymore. So yeah, I thought it was a great like message in there. And then he eventually like returns to Asgard, of course, like everyone knows the story. And then yeah, like I thought it was a very moving movie. The trials that he had to go through. We also met Hawkeye in that movie, even though I'm not a big fan of that hero. But yeah, I thought that was a pretty good movie.
It was a really good father-son tale, I thought.
Exactly, yeah.
Right. Which I thought was the core of that. It was the two of them trying to figure out what the sort of the meaning of family meant.
And it's really important, like with this step in this movie, for like what happens in Thor Ragnarok, like with, yeah.
I think it's one of those movies that gets, and a lot of them do this for me, but I think it's one of those movies that gets better once you see where it's gone and you go back and watch it. and you realize they had this sort of falling out moment. Some of Tom Hiddleston's acting there as Loki, and that is really incredible. Just like
Yeah.
you feel him like distraught at realizing or
Yeah,
feeling.
Loki, you
Right.
definitely could feel for him, like he was like adopted, and then like the whole Frost Giants thing. Yeah, you could definitely understand his anger, but I reckon it was a bit misplaced, but you definitely could understand it. Like he felt like an outsider.
Hmm.
Um,
Betrayed by
yeah,
Odin.
and it was definitely it was awesome. Like I think 3D at the cinema. Mistakenly, I shouldn't have done that. I don't like 3D movies, but it was like for the first time when you saw Asgard, I was like, yeah, this is awesome. Like you just see like these kind of like gold pipes, or like how Asgard looks like. I thought like that was pretty amazing the first
Yeah.
time you saw it.
It does
Uh,
look incredible. I just
Yeah.
wanted to sort of tie that back into the Dark World just a little bit. At the beginning, where you see Loki kind of walk up and he's being imprisoned, he's in chains, and he just you see him with complete antipathy towards his dad at that point, towards Odin. And this is the first time he's seeing him since he was sort of cast out of Asgard in Thor 1. His first reaction to that really is to walk up to his dad, and he's just completely ambivalent towards him. He kind of mocks him. He walks up and kind of slaps his feet together like he's like a toy soldier or something like that. He just does not care what Odin thinks at that point.
Mm,
And that's a direct fallout of Thor 1 and the great
yeah.
build up they had it there. Wilbur's, what'd you have?
well, I first want to come back to Thor because before I start on mine, because a very integral part of the first Thor movie and the second Thor movie, and actually also Marvel's The Avengers, is the dynamic between Thor and Loki. And I think if you look at Thor: The Dark World, for me, what stands out is actually those two brothers trying to get revenge for the death of their mother, while not trusting each other. I think that those scenes are a few of the most powerful scenes within the MCU. And like Art said, Frigga's funeral, I think it's visually the most stunning scene in the MCU, and I will die on that hill. So Thor: The Dark World is a very good movie. That doesn't mean it's very high up my list, but that's because the other ones, to me, are better. But I will not say a bad thing about Thor: The Dark World. Let's start with that. Okay, my most underestimated or underrated MCU film is actually The Incredible Hulk.
Okay, you're gonna mention it. Okay. Right.
And to me, well, The Incredible Hulk is, if you look at the first five movies of the MCU before Marvel's The Avengers, there's only one movie that I think is better, and that's the first Avenger. Yes, I say The Incredible Hulk is better than Iron Man. And
Wow.
yes,
Like,
that movie has a lot. I mean, what they did, they were really smart by not showing the origin. It was just a few years before where they showed the origin in Ang Lee's Hulk, so they skipped doing the origin again. They did it in the opening sequence, which is very smart because everybody knows the story of the experiment with gamma rays going bad. So they tied it also very smart into Shield and Stark Industries during that opening sequence. And then you get the opening sequence in Brazil, which is actually shot amazing. I mean, only that drone shot or helicopter shot over the favela, it really captures that kind of quarter in Brazil. Um, the chase sequence ending up in the factory is I really think it's brilliant. When it comes to Edward Norton, I think Edward Norton is a great actor. He is a diva. That's absolutely true, and I would have wanted him to stay on as Bruce Banner, but I'm fine with Mark Ruffalo taking over the role, by the way. But Edward Norton did a great job as Bruce Banner in that movie. Um, My favorite scene is actually a very small scene in the movie, but it's when he gets up to the American border where he's the beggar, trying to get the new pants and everything. You get the Lonely Man team from the original series back in the 1970s, The Incredible Hulk. Well, you get that same music. What played on the every ending of the episode where he walks along the road to the next town. Well, you get the same music again, which that as a it comes directly from my childhood. So that is amazing to me. Um, the one thing I don't like, there's one little mistake in the movie, and that's at the Culver University at the battle scene at the end. They switch from day to night in a second. That's just a little fault in the movie, but that's just the only thing that I find is wrong with it. I know Lord Deathman thinks the Incredible Hulk is Hulk for dummies.
Why does he
I
think that?
Yeah, I think now, well, because he is like and Archie here, they both like Ang Lee's Hulk a lot. And
Oh,
if you compare the Incredible Hulk to Ang Lee's Hulk, when you look at the quality level, there is a distinct difference in favor of Ang Lee's Hulk. I will not disagree with that. But to me, Ang Lee's Hulk is not MCU. That's a whole other debate, Arch. Um,
It's not. It's not. It's not officially. I just like it.
it's not officially. So.
Yeah.
It still the story captures Bruce Banner, his struggle with his anger inside and his desire to get rid of it. That's what drives the story. He wants to get rid of it. So imagine his shock when Samuel Stern at the end has multiplied his blood and creates a whole another problem for Bruce. Just as it seems as he got rid of the Hulk, which he didn't, of course. The end sequence between him and the Abomination, I think, is one of the great Hulk fights shown on film to date.
That was fun.
And it's one where the Hulk really meets his match and wins. He also meets his match in Infinity War, by the way, with Thanos, and he loses. So that's also a nice parallel. There are only two beings that can take up the Hulk as themselves, three if you count Thor. But I really like the way they structured the story without telling the origin. It still feels like an origin movie, and I was really happy they brought back Thunderbolt Ross in Civil War and later on in the series. So they acknowledged the existence of the Incredible Hulk. When I read that the Falcon and the Winter Soldier is bringing back some of the earlier characters from the MCU from Phase 1, I'm really hoping for Samuel Stern as the leader. And
they set him up in that movie, yeah.
Yeah, and well, I don't need the Abomination, but if they bring him back, that's also fine. I think Emil Blonsky, I can't remember the guy who portrayed him.
That's a good question. I can't remember.
There's the guy from Lie to Me. I can't remember the actor's name though.
Yeah, he's also in Reservoir Dogs. But
That's
anyway,
right, yeah.
Emil Blonsky, I really like as a character
Tim Roth.
Tim Roth, a great actor. He wants to be young again. He has his own agenda in this whole movie, and yeah, I just love this movie, and I will put it right up there with Iron Man as one of the best movies in Phase 1. If you talk to me, Iron Man 2 and Thor are lesser. And I know I'm on dangerous ground here, but to me are lesser movies than Incredible Hulk and Iron Man, in my view. But that's just me. And maybe I'm a little bit too much of a Hulk fanboy to, be honest about this. But I really love the Incredible Hulk, and it doesn't get enough love.
There's another specific reason that I really love it as well, and I don't know if I doubt many people will have the same experience. So one of the first, in fact, the very first Hulk comic I ever read was called Peace in Our Time. I think it was 4 issues, and it was leading up to Planet Hulk. It was a set of events that happened before he got off planet. But it was called Peace in Our Time, and it was Bruce out in the woods just living on his own, and that's kind of how this movie starts, and just felt immediately very comic booky to me, and I had that story in the back of my mind, like kind of the whole time I was watching Incredible Hulk, so it felt cool to me. What you got, Biz?
So was that like an Easter egg then, when like you mentioned the comic was called Peace in Our Time, and Tony Stark says that in Ultron?
When Tony Stark says "Peace in Our Time" in Ultron, that gets to me a little bit because of that comic.
He says that to Bruce Banner.
Yeah.
To Bruce Banner, yeah, "Peace in Our Time," yeah. So that was exactly a reference to that comic book.
Right, okay.
At least to me. There's another reference in Age of Ultron, sort of a reference back to Incredible Hulk that I really love, and it's very subtle. It's that the satellite, the Hulkbuster armor, is called Veronica. You guys get it? So Veronica is named Veronica because of Bruce Banner's love, Betty. And of course, that goes back to Archie Comics, who the best friends were Betty.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Veronica.
I read it before. Yeah. Betty and Veronica.
Yeah, so he names the satellite that Bruce helped him build, Veronica, in memory of Betty. So I thought that was pretty cool. That's the way I take that. I think that's pretty awesome. Any other thoughts, guys? I had one more Dark World thought, but I don't want to.